I'll then give an overview of what we class as print-ready artwork, along with a couple of examples. Then I'll cover some of the popular applications that can be used to create your artwork and explain some of the pros and cons of each. Number four there is design creation, and this is where you'll need to consider what size you want your cards to be, and then construct your artwork in the correct fashion, which means building in things like page bleed, wraparound, and reverse print if applicable. Next, there's a section on images, and here I'll talk about image resolution and color spaces. Number six, if you like to include an FSC logo, I'll go over the rules of placement that need to be followed. Number seven there is finishing, and what I'll focus on here is hot and digital foil, and I'll explain the difference between the two. And then number eight, finally, when we have our artwork ready, with everything in place, we'll need to output it using recommended PDF settings. So print-ready artwork. So what I want to begin with, first of all, is to explain what we mean by print-ready artwork. And for us, that means artwork that can be confidently processed and produced with no intervention, with all the fundamental requirements in place. And those requirements are that the file is set up at the correct trim size, the file contains page bleed where applicable, that wraparound is pleasant if applicable, the file contains high-res images, which are ideally 300 dpi. The file contains CMYK images and elements, so not RGB. That finishing artwork is correctly produced if required, and that designs are supplied to us as PDF. So there's a bit of terminology to explain there. So to help with this immediately, I've got a couple of print-ready designs which I can use as examples, which are here. So taking each of those in turn, first of all, if we look at the design size, this one is set up at an open size of 300 millimeters wide by 150 millimeters high, which is the correct size for this particular design. So obviously, if that was supplied at an incorrect size, there's a high chance that it's going to get produced at an incorrect size, and no one wants that. Just to show you what we have there is a card that's laid flat. So this is the open size of the card, and we have page 1 on the left, page 4 on the right, which is the back page. This particular page is blank on the reverse, but it's possible to have print on the reverse as well. And then we have page 2 and page 3 there on the left and the right. So we've got a 4-page card up there. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4. So once printed and finished, cards are cut out of a B1 sheet or a smaller sheet if it's a digital print job. And the cutting is usually via a guillotine, sometimes a cutting form, and it's trimmed on all the 4 edges as we see there, like so. And what I want to show you first of all is why we have page bleed. Okay. So if we look at the top corner there, we have tick marks. Okay. Now, not every design has tick marks on it, but this one does, and it's good for illustration. Also have a little red box there, which won't print, but that's a visual guide to show you where the card should trim. Now, in the world of manufacturing, nothing is ever 100% accurate. We've got sheets of paper moving high speed through machines, and everything's got a tolerance. So when that card is cut, ideally, we want it to cut down straight down that line there on the trim edge. In reality, that will drift ever so slightly. There will be a tolerance. So it may fall to the left and it may fall to the right, like so, and kind of move around a little bit. Now, if it falls to the left of that, ideal position. It isn't a problem because we have print running right up to where the card is being cut. Now, if it falls to the right there, and we didn't have any page bleed, we would see a white line there. There'd be a non-print area that appears on the front of the card, which would look a bit odd, and no one wants that. So this area here, this extra bit of print that's been added is the page bleed. So it's an extension of the print over the trim line into what we call the bleed area. And ideally, that needs to be 3 millimeters on each edge. Wraparound was the next thing mentioned, and that's very similar to page bleed, but it concerns the extra bit of print that we have wrapping over the spine of the card. And the reason it's there is for similar sort of reasons to page bleed. The card will fold on that line there, which is right down the center of the card. Okay. Now, when it's in production, again, it's likely to move slightly one way or the other. So if the fold falls ever so slightly to that side, it's not a problem because you've still got print there. If it falls ever slightly to the other side there, we need this extra little bit of print wrapping over the spine to make sure, again, that there's no kind of white sliver or non-print area that appears on the face of the card. So if you ever go into a shop or you're familiar with greeting cards, it's a little feature that you tend to see on most greeting cards. I don't know if you can see it there, but when I fold this, there's an extra little bit of print that just wraps over the spine. It's to guard against any non-printed area showing on the face once it's folded in this case. So that is wraparound. Next on the list was images. So if I select the image there and have a look at the details, first of all, it's at a resolution there of 300 dpi, and this is something I'll cover later, which is print standard, so that's absolutely fine. And it's CMYK, so it's in the correct color space for print, so that's good. If we had finishing on this artwork, which I think is on this one here, so switching to this one here, this has a foil. This is going to be foiled, so it's got a spot plate or a spot separation for foil, which is something that's required for when cards go down the litho route. So that has been correctly applied as a spot color. And then finally, it's supplied to us as a PDF, which is what we're looking at now. So these examples here meet the criteria required. Okay. So on the flip side of that, if you like, so from showing you something that does qualify as being print ready, I've got an example of something that is not. And the important thing to note here is that it's possible that incorrect artwork can be rejected or print incorrectly should the contents be incorrect. So that can mean delays or costly reprints, which again, no one wants. So I've got an example, a bit of an extreme example, but an example nonetheless of something that is very incorrect. So just looking at those same things again, page bleed, as we can see there, the artwork is finished right on the trim line, and that would be a problem in production because, as I say, if that is cut ever slightly to the right of where it should be, we have a white line there, so a non-print area showing. Likewise, on the same for all the edges, as we can see there. And also, we have no wraparound. So again, should the card fold there, slightly away from the center, we have a non-print area showing there as well, which would appear on the face of the card. The image, if I have a look at the image, first of all, it's RGB, so that would likely be converted to CMYK when it enters production and would likely look different. And the resolution, if I look at that, that's 60 dpi, which is classed as low res. So you would see the pixels, you would see the blockiness of that image once it's printed. We would need the card obviously setting up at the correct size, so that the size should be as expected as it appears on the order. So really, that's an overview of something that's very much not print ready, and hopefully you can see the difference between the two. But this is the kind of thing that we like to see and we expect to see on artwork submitted to us. Okay. So next, I just want to talk about applications before we go any further, because this is something that has changed of late. There are now a few software options available, and all the applications below can produce print-ready greeting card artwork, albeit in quite different ways. So we're starting there with what I've called the Creative Classics, and this is basically software that is part of the Adobe Creative Suite, and this is the software that I've grown up with. And really, over the past 30 years or so, Adobe have set nearly all the standards for design and print production software, and pretty much dominated the market. And that's been the case up until more recently. But now there are some new kids that have appeared, and they are the likes of Canva, Affinity, and Procreate. And I think these have gained popularity over the last few years, primarily because they are a lower cost alternative to the Adobe package. Canva and Affinity have shaken things up a bit recently as they've joined forces, and the Affinity software can now be downloaded free of charge to Canva subscribers. The packages have all changed names, so I've last minute had to update this presentation. But I mean, that's amazing, the fact that it's now free of charge, and it's quite decent software as well. The Adobe package is pricey in comparison, but you are buying a premium product there. So something to bear in mind. For me, it used to be the case that I could produce guides and presentations like this just using the Adobe software, as it was what nearly everybody used. But those guides have got little relevance now to a Canva or a Procreate user, as that software can behave quite differently. It's got different features and it's got certain limitations. So it makes things like this a little bit more challenging, and especially when you go beyond the basics and we start dealing with things like finishing artwork, for example, as the rules per application can be quite different. What I have done here, though, is to separate the software into two camps. So one of the key distinctions is the divide between what I've titled here as page makeup applications and image-based applications. So what we have on the page makeup side is InDesign, Illustrator, Canva, and what is now called Affinity Vector and Affinity Layout. And on the image-based application side, we have Photoshop, Affinity Pixel, and Procreate. So page makeup applications, as the names suggest, or do support page work. They also are quite good at supporting vector artwork and images as well. Image-based software's primary task really is to create and edit images and not really handle pages or vector artwork. It can work with vector artwork to a degree, but primarily it works just with pixels. So there is a little bit more flexibility on the page makeup side than there is the image-based application side. And just to very quickly illustrate what that means, I'm going to go to Illustrator and show you what I'm talking about when I'm talking about vector artwork. It's artwork that uses paths, so you tend to get all these features in applications like Illustrator, so you can create paths like so, and text as well. So it's very good at handling text, because that's basically made up of paths. So if I zoom in on that, you can see here that the image stays sharp. I can endlessly zoom up into this image and it will always stay nice and sharp. And the reason behind that is because that shape is made up by a language. It's a language that defines that shape. It's not pixels. It's not dependent on pixels. So page makeup applications tend to handle vector artwork quite well. And from a print perspective, that vector artwork is very, very good because it will always be nice and sharp. On the other side, on the image-based side, it will just work with a resolution in pixels, and I will come on to that later. But as I've said, all the applications can still work for greeting card artwork, but just bear in mind that the page makeup applications do offer a little bit more flexibility. And just to again illustrate that, there we go. We've got pages, which is a feature that you tend to see on the applications mentioned, against and vector artwork against pixel artwork there. Okay. So we're now on to design creation and where to start. So you may have an idea for a design, but what do you really need to consider? So the first thing that you should consider before diving into a design and picking up your pencil or using your keyboard is to consider your card size. And the standard card sizes that we see every day are usually derived from standard envelope sizes. So as it says here, in most cases, the final folded and finished size of the card is determined by the choice of envelope, and there are a few options to choose from. The card ultimately needs to sit comfortably within the envelope, and with this in mind, the folded size of the card needs to be smaller than the envelope, both in height and width. We can provide a list of common card and envelope sizes on request. So the last thing you'll want after spending a long time creating a range of cards is to find that they don't fit any of the standard envelope sizes. And that can mean having to source a non-standard standard envelope, and that can extend lead times and it can be quite costly as well. So if you do stick to the common card sizes, you're much more likely to be able to source stock envelopes, which generally works out to be quicker and easier. So I've just selected 3 common sizes that are displayed here, a 6x6 size, an A6, and a 7x5. So if we look at the green section in the middle as an example, we have the sizes there for an A6 folded card, which I have here. Okay, so starting with the open or the flat size, that is 210 millimeters across and 148 millimeters high. So the closed size is half the longer dimension. So that's now 105 millimeters across and 148 millimeters high. So the envelope that we need is going to be bigger to accommodate the card, which makes sense, obviously. If I hold that against there, hopefully you can see it. So that really should be the first consideration when you're starting to create a range of cards. So then, when you've selected your application of choice and you've got your size, you need to lay that artwork out in a particular fashion, and I've touched upon this already. So as you can see here, we've got a visual of how the artwork needs to be laid out, and that's again the open size of the card. So it's laid out as a spread like so. And this is how cards are printed. So as I've said, and as you can see there, we've got page 4 on the left and page 1 on the right as we look at the face of the card. The card more than likely will fold down the middle when it's finished. So this is the spine of the card. If the card is to have reverse print, then that's printed on the reverse, and that's classed as page 2 and page 3 as mentioned. And page 3 is generally where the verse appears, as you can see there. But please note, I've put a little statement in the center there, which says for page-based applications, the overall document size is to be set at the open trim size of the card. Oh, there we go. Got it there. So that means for likes of InDesign, Illustrator, and Canva, if you have to make this easy, a 150 folded card size, 150 square, it will need to be, the document will need to be set at 300 by 150. So it needs to be set up at the trim size of the card. You would then add the page bleed over that trim edge onto the artwork, and those applications will allow that. Now I've got another layout here, which is for image-based applications such as Photoshop and Procreate. So focusing on that little bit in the middle there, it's different for these applications. So the overall document size is to be set at the open trim size of the card plus 6 mm on each dimension to incorporate the 3 mm page bleed on each edge. So that's the difference between the two. Like I said earlier, it's not a page you're creating in those applications. It's actually an image or a canvas. So the rules are slightly different for that. Same if you do have reverse print, you would have to set that up as a separate document because it can't handle page work. So you would send a PDF for the face and a PDF for the reverse. Okay. So I will very quickly jump to InDesign and show you what that means. So I'm setting up a new document here. So this is my card code, my SKU code. Again, to keep things simple, choose that open size of 300 by 150. Now there are 2 pages if I've got reverse print, which I'll keep in this case. Tabbing through those, columns aren't important, margins aren't important, but what is important, as we can see here, is bleed. So that is set at 3 mm, which is the requirement, and that will appear as a guide once I create it. And that's all we need to create the document. And there we go. What I tend to recommend is that a guide is put in place so you can see where the card will fold. So you can drag a guide in place, certainly in InDesign. And it would be 150 mm in this case, which is right down the center. And there you go, you can design around that. You've got your page bleed marked out in red there, and you've got your center line. If I do the same thing in Photoshop here, you'll see that things are a little bit different. So starting a new document, giving it a title. So still got a width and a height. As I've said, and again, using the 150 square card as an example, you would need to incorporate page bleed into the size here. So it needs to be 306, so 3 mm on each side. And in the height, 150 plus 6. Okay. So that's the main difference between the 2 types of application. Now, straight away underneath there, we have a resolution, which is something we haven't seen in design. But I'll leave that at 300 dpi as it should be. Color mode, again, we're presented with that, which is different to what we've seen in design. That would need to be CMYK. And as you can see, we don't have page bleed options because, like I said, it's not that kind of application. So if I create a document there, what I would recommend in a similar sort of fashion is to put your center lines in for the fold more accurately than I've just done there, and also mark out your bleed area as well, because it won't do that automatically. So if I put a guide 3 mm in from that corner and likewise on the other corner, that shows you where the card will trim, and it shows you where your artwork needs to bleed to. So that is something I would recommend if you are a Photoshop user. Okay. There we go. Right. So to take away some of that pain that I've just shown you, we do actually have templates available, which are here. So we have some of the common card sizes that I've already mentioned. And if I have a look at those, we've got templates per popular application. So we have one for Canva there. We have the Affinity ones, Illustrator, InDesign, and Photoshop. So that's something that we can supply on request. And that document has already been set up with all the guides in place and everything. So they're ready to use. So we have them for page makeup software, as it says there, e.g. Illustrator, and image-based software, e.g. Photoshop. Okay, moving on. Images. So images and resolution. So images and artwork can be created in two main ways: vector artwork, which I've already mentioned, and pixel-based artwork. So now we'll look at the pixel-based artwork here. So digital images are made from a grid of dots called pixels. The number of pixels contained in every square inch determines how sharp and detailed the image will appear when printed. This figure is usually stated as dots per inch, which is DPI, sometimes known as pixels per inch, PPI. And images where the DPI figure falls below a certain threshold are determined as low resolution or low res and can be rejected when submitted for print. And those with an acceptable DPI for print production are determined to be high resolution or high res. So I have here an example of both. Shall I open in Photoshop? So what we're looking at here is the same size circle, which I believe is 30 millimeters in diameter. But one has been set up as 300 DPI, which I'll be able to show you there, in the image size, and the other one at 72 DPI. Okay. So straight away, you can see the difference between the two. The 300 DPI one is quite sharp, even though it's been zoomed up there. So the edges of the circle are nice and crisp, as is the text. Whereas the 72 DPI version is quite blocky and pixelated. In fact, you can even see the grid formation there, and the text is also very pixelated. So that is, if a 72 DPI image appeared in your design, it's likely to look like that when it's printed. So it wouldn't look very good at all. So really, the artwork needs to be 300 DPI. Now, there are some pitfalls to be aware of. So if you place images in your document at 300 DPI, things can still go wrong. And as it says here, bear in mind, a high-res image is only a high-res image when it's placed at 100% or less within the document. So increasing the size of the image once placed changes the effective resolution. So I shall explain what I mean there using this example. So this is a document set up in InDesign, and it's got an image placed here, which is, if I go to the info panel in InDesign, it will give me some information on that image. It's a JPEG. Its actual PPI or DPI is 300, which is correct. Its effective PPI is 300, and its color space is CMYK. Okay, so a little bit of information on that image. It's been placed, if we look up here, at 100% of its original size. So that is the same size as that image has been set up as. If I increase that to 200%, so I've enlarged the image, and look at this panel again, the actual PPI is the same, the 300, but the effective PPI is now 150. So enlarging it 200% has effectively reduced the resolution of that image. So the grid, think of it this way, the grid that's being used for the image has been stretched to twice the size that it was. So all those pixels have been stretched along with it. The grid has stretched. If I went absolutely crazy, made that 400%, we've now got 75 DPI image there. So that is pretty much low res now. And that's just through enlarging the image once it's been placed. So it's something we've encountered. You had all the artwork that contains low res images. We've fed that back to be told, it can't be because my images are 300 DPI. But if that's happened, if they've been enlarged, then it can effectively make them low res. And the second one there, high res image is only high res if it has originated at a high resolution and not been upscaled. So to explain what that means, it's possible, certainly in Photoshop, to upscale the resolution of a low resolution image. So I can take that from 72 DPI and make it 300, okay? And there's various methods in which that can be done, but leave it at automatic. If I make that 300 DPI, the size of the image has stayed exactly the same, but the resolution is increased. So Photoshop will try and guess what pixels need to appear. So it'll add pixels where there were none previously. And it can do a reasonable job at guessing where they should be, but it's not perfect. So it's still a little bit soft, this image. It's not quite the same as the nice, crisp 300 DPI one. And as you can see, the text is a little bit blurry. So it's possible to do that, but again, not really ideal. It's much better to start with an image at the correct size and start at 300 DPI and keep everything there without upscaling or enlarging. Right. The next subject is color, and as printers, this is something quite dear to our hearts. So we recommend that all artwork is set up in the CMYK color space, as the inks used for printing are cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, otherwise known as key. Files supplied as RGB will be converted to CMYK automatically, and that can lead to unexpected results. So to very quickly show you the difference between RGB and CMYK, and I'm hoping this comes across okay over Zoom. But we have here an image that is RGB. So if I go to the image mode, you can see that there. If I convert it to CMYK, you can see the color has shifted. It's become a little bit more dull. It's not as vibrant. Go back, you'll see that again. Okay, so that's what can happen. So the actual color of the image has changed. So the reason for that is that the two color spaces and light sources of those spaces are totally different. RGB has the primary colors of red, green, and blue, and these are colors that are emitted as light. So, for example, from LEDs in our monitor screens, or anything else that emits, like the TV, that emits light. The RGB space is additive. So when RGB light is mixed together at full intensity, it makes white light. CMYK is almost the complete opposite. It's a subtractive color space, so that relies on reflected light from an external source, such as light bulbs or daylight. The light will bounce off the image and hit your eye. So that happens. What happens there is certain wavelengths from that light are absorbed into the inks in this case, and the remaining wavelengths produces the colors that we see. And when CMYK colors are mixed together, they make black or a near enough black color. So quite different. They are totally different color spaces. The last diagram there on the right shows the difference between the two color spaces and the colors that are achievable. So the whole set of colors displayed here is the lab color space, the one on the outside. And these are all the colors that are visible to the human eye. Within this space, we've got colors that can be produced in the RGB color space, which is the next one there, the next biggest one there. And the RGB space is bigger and more vibrant, which is something you'd expect from light being emitted, compared to the CMYK one, which is the smaller one that sits inside there. So there are certain colors that we class as being out of gamut, which live beyond the CMYK color space that can't be achieved in CMYK. And it goes some way to explaining why, when you look at an image on your screen, on your monitor, it might not look exactly the same as your printed result. So we recommend that artwork is always set up in the CMYK color space. If it's not, you'll be looking at colors that you possibly cannot achieve. And once they've been through the processes here, they will get converted to CMYK, and it can look different to what you're expecting. It's a problem that we sometimes face because there's certain applications that want to produce nice bright images and will default to RGB. Procreate very much springs to mind here. It's an iPad based application, so it really promotes that nice vibrant RGB image. And converting to CMYK within Procreate can be done, but it's not always easy. Okay. FSC logos next. Okay, so we use FSC certified materials here, and so to promote that, the FSC logo can be added to the artwork should you wish. There are rules that need to be followed. So as it says there, to avoid rejection and action from the FSC police, the following rules must be adhered to. So if you do receive an FSC logo from us or from anyone else, don't reduce the size of the logo. Don't place it at an angle or distort the proportions. Don't change the contents within the logo. Don't recolor it. The logo, quite an important one, the logo requires a clearance zone around it, which is as big as the F within the logo. So it needs to have clear space around it. And it should also be legible. So please make sure it stands out against the background that it's placed on. It's something that we get audited for. So, you know, the placement has to be accurate. And just to show you an example, actually, I can go back to this one here. See, that's got plenty of space around it, and it's placed at the correct size. Another type here, a landscape one. There we go. Just enough space around that one. That's been placed correctly. Okay. The next thing is finishing. Okay. So there are many different finishes that can be applied to greeting cards. So we've got foil, emboss, die cut, to name but a few. From a file preparation point of view, adding finishes can increase complexity massively. And how this is done is largely dependent on the application used and the finishing in question. So again, I mentioned this, traditional generic advice was based on using Adobe software, but unfortunately, this is not relevant to all applications, especially the newer ones. So finishing really does add a whole new level of complexity to file preparation. And what I will say is if you are contemplating using finishing, it's always best to contact your printer first for guidance. There are too many rules to, I think, cover in this session here. But from an artwork perspective, I can show you how hot foil is traditionally set up. And this is for a card taking the litho route, where it is hot foil stamped after it is printed. So as it says there, the artwork is originated from InDesign, so that allows for spot use of spot colors placed over the print artwork. The spot color is also named relevantly, and that works for most of the page-based applications such as InDesign, Illustrator, the Affinity software, but not Canva. Okay, Canva can't handle spot colors. Photoshop can also produce something similar for litho production, but again, the method is very, very different. So if I go back to Acrobat, there we go, and that design. So we have a foil caption there on the card that has been set up in InDesign as a spot color, an overprinting spot color. And I can show you here on using this example. I have a similar caption there, some text. I'll look at the color that's been used there for it. It's been named as gold foil, which is correct. That's what I want it to be. And it's been set up as a spot color, which we can see there because it's got a slightly different icon next to it, which looks like a spot. If I double click that, there we go. The color type is spot. Printed colors you would set as process colors. Finishing artwork you would set up as a spot color. If it's a spot color, the actual color that you use doesn't really matter. The fact that it's a spot color is the most important thing. So that if you were setting up finishing for this for a card that's going down the litho route, that's generally how you would do it, and that applies to things like die cut or emboss or a lot of the other finishes as well. Slightly different for digital foil. Get this back. Yeah, there we go. So you don't have to take the litho route to add finishes to your design. And one popular finish, certainly over the last few years, has been digital foil. It's very, very close to hot foil in appearance, but as it says here, the application of digital foil is quite different to hot foil. And the main and most important difference is the stage at which it is applied. So unlike hot foil, which is stamped after the sheet has been printed, digital foil works the other way around, with the foil applied first and the print afterwards. So to keep advice consistent for digital foil, and importantly, compatible with all design applications, so this is a method that can work with all the applications, we recommend the following. Set the foil areas up over the printed artwork. These areas are then to be coloured white, so they knock out any printed areas beneath. Copy and paste the foil features onto another page or document, ensuring that the position is accurate, which is very important, and then colour the foil element as black. So I have an example I can show you here. So this is using Illustrator, but like I say, it can be it's the same for the other applications as well. So looking at the face of that card there, I've added a caption, which is there. So that's what I want foiling. Okay. So what I'm going to do first of all is put it in place against the printed background, which it is there, and color it white. So that is colored white. It won't print. That's going to knock out of the print. So that area won't print. Then what I've done in this case, and this is because it's Illustrator, is I've duplicated that artboard, copied that caption and pasted it in place so that the position of that is exactly the same as the position there. There are various ways of doing this, but I think in that case I actually used paste in place. So I've guaranteed that the position is the same. Select that artwork and color it up black. So what will happen is, and then save this out as a separate PDF named foil. So that would be saved as PDF called print, suffixed with print, and that would be saved as a PDF suffixed with foil. So what would happen here is that caption is printed and foiled first, and then the print prints basically around that image, and that's how digital foil works. Similar with Photoshop, I've got an example here. There we go. Similar and a little bit different because Photoshop doesn't handle pages, but same sort of principle. I've set up the document with all the print elements in there. Got my foil caption that I want, which is coloured white at present. So I would save that as a print PDF, select the text as I've done there, colour it black, 100% black, get rid of everything else, and then save that as the foil PDF. So the position is guaranteed, nothing's moved. It's just the colour of that caption that has changed. So that works across all applications, which is helpful. And then finally, we have output and PDF output. So with everything added to your design and everything set up correctly, PDFs can now be created and submitted for print. And as it says here, each of the design applications already mentioned can produce PDFs, which are required for our RIPs and workflows. So recommended settings can be sent over on request. Just to show you what they look like, I have an Illustrator example here. So it's a walkthrough really of all the screens that you're presented with when you select a PDF, when you save as a PDF. So there you go. We've got the things that need checking there per screen. And once done, once you've been through all of those, you can save that as a preset. So you don't have to keep repeating that every single time. You just select it from that drop-down menu at the top. So there we go. So depending on the application used, some PDF settings can degrade the quality of the PDF output. So it's important to get these right. You can undo a lot of hard work otherwise. Tick marks are preferable if allowed under settings. Some applications, again, the page makeup applications allow for tick marks, and they are the things that you saw earlier. Let's have a look on the corner there. Tick marks or trim marks.